How to emotionally detach from anyone. What if emotional freedom wasn't about becoming numb, but about becoming powerful through peace? Imagine letting go of someone, not with pain or bitterness, but with clarity, strength, and self-respect. You don't need their validation to feel whole. What you need is the mindset that sets your heart free. Life confronts us with the undeniable truth that people come and go. We bond with others, build connections, and often anchor our emotions to those relationships. Yet, what happens when those bonds break? How do we handle the emotional weight when someone no longer occupies the same space in our lives? Or when we realize they've never shared the same emotional investment? We might ask, how do I stop caring? Or can I truly detach emotionally without losing a piece of myself? This is where Stoicism, especially the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, provides us with a path. The Stoics were adept at understanding human emotions, not by evading them, but by learning how to balance their influence on our lives. Emotional detachment isn't about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about regaining the power to act with clarity and inner peace. In this article, I'll guide you through 5 timeless Stoic principles on how to emotionally detach from someone using the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius as our compass. This isn't just theory. It's practical advice intended to reshape how you engage with yourself and others. Rule number 1. Comprehend the impermanence of life. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. When it comes to emotional attachments, we often cling to our perspective of someone, a narrative we create about their importance in our lives. But the reality is that all relationships are transient. One moment you're close, the next they're gone, whether through distance, death, or the slow fade of intimacy. People leave. It may seem bleak, but this is the Stoics' first rule of emotional detachment. Embrace impermanence. When you realize that no connection is permanent, you become more conscious of the present. Have you ever tried holding on to a handful of sand at the beach? The tighter you squeeze, the quicker it slips away. This is a natural law of life. The more we try to possess something or someone, the faster they fade in our experience. I had a friendship that spanned over 10 years. We shared everything: dreams, fears, and late-night conversations. Yet, over time, things changed. As much as I resisted, the distance between us grew. The emotional investment I had made felt like a chain, binding me to someone who no longer reciprocated the same connection. It wasn't until I accepted that the friendship had run its course that I could finally release that emotional weight. Marcus Aurelius would have advised the same. Things will end, and you will suffer less when they do. Rule number 2. Master your emotions with rational thought. There is a tendency to believe that emotions control us. We experience pain, sadness, and anger. These reactions come naturally when we're emotionally attached to someone. But here's the hard truth. Emotions are not reality. They are a product of our thoughts, beliefs, and interpretations of events. Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics deeply believed in this principle. We are not at the mercy of our emotions. Our emotions are at the mercy of our thoughts. Marcus Aurelius taught us that the mind has power over how we respond to the world. You control your mind, not outside events. Please be sure to realize this, and you will find strength. He wrote that emotional detachment begins with understanding that your mind can govern your emotional state. Your thoughts about someone can spark a storm of feelings, or they can calm that same storm. Let's say you're going through a breakup. You're emotionally shattered, replaying conversations in your mind, overanalyzing every detail, asking, Why did this happen? Or how could they move on so easily? The Stoic response is to shift that focus. Instead of allowing your emotions to take control, ask, "What are the facts here?" Or, "How can I think about this differently?" You must choose thoughts that liberate you from emotional suffering, not thoughts that exacerbate it. Consider this for a moment. When something happens, whether you argue with a loved one, feel overlooked, or experience disappointment, what's the first thing you do? You interpret the situation and assign it meaning. However, it's not the event itself that triggers emotional upheaval. It's the way you perceive it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts," meaning your emotions are a direct result of your internal dialogue. You send a heartfelt text message to someone you care about, perhaps a friend, romantic partner, or family member. Hours go by, and there's no response. Immediately, your mind starts working overtime. Did I say something wrong? Are they mad at me? Do they not care about me? With every passing minute, your emotions intensify. First a slight concern, then frustration, maybe even anxiety or anger. But what's the truth of the situation? Is it the delay in their response that's causing your emotional storm, or is it your interpretation of their silence? The Stoic response is to challenge that automatic emotional reaction with rational thought. What are the facts? The fact is that they haven't responded. Everything beyond that is pure speculation. Instead of letting your emotions spiral out of control, you pause. You recognize that your feelings of anxiety or rejection are not rooted in reality, but in your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius advises questioning your thoughts. Don't accept them as truth without examination. I once found myself in this very situation with a close friend. We had been discussing something important when suddenly they stopped responding. At first, I thought nothing of it, but as the hours passed, I began to feel a creeping unease. Maybe they're upset with me, I thought. Perhaps I said something wrong. By the time the night ended, I had convinced myself that the friendship was on the brink of collapse. My emotions were everywhere: worry, guilt, and frustration. But when I paused to examine what was happening, I realized something crucial. Nothing had happened. My friend had become busy. When I reached out calmly the next day, they responded without issue, utterly unaware of the emotional storm I had created for myself. In a rare moment of clarity, I remembered Marcus Aurelius's words. Focus on what's within your control, your thoughts, your actions, not the outcome or the person's feelings. By redirecting your mind, you will learn to release the emotional turmoil. If you're still watching, please like and comment below with a sign that you've noticed in your relationships. Your insights might help others recognize similar patterns and foster healthier connections. Rule number 3. Engage in negative visualization. At first glance, negative visualization might seem like a strange or even counterproductive practice. Why would anyone want to imagine losing something or someone they care about deliberately? Doesn't that add unnecessary stress? The truth is, this Stoic exercise championed by Marcus Aurelius serves as one of the most powerful tools to help you emotionally detach, not by hardening your heart, but by preparing your mind for life's inevitable losses. The idea is simple, yet profound. By imagining the worst-case scenario in advance, you lessen its emotional impact when and if it occurs. This doesn't mean you become fatalistic or pessimistic. It means you're training yourself to accept reality as it is, rather than how you wish it were. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not disturb yourself by imagining the whole of your life's troubles at once. Rather, as each arises, meet it with calmness and self-control." In essence, negative visualization builds resilience. Imagine a person to whom you're deeply attached, a partner, a friend, a family member. Now, visualize your life without them. Picture them no longer in your everyday life. How does that feel? Uncomfortable? Painful? That's precisely the point. The Stoics believed that by facing the emotional discomfort of loss in your mind, you reduce its power to devastate you in reality. I remember practicing this during a time when my best friend was considering moving overseas. We had been inseparable for years, and the thought of them being on the other side of the world filled me with dread. But rather than suppressing that fear, I embraced it. Every day, I'd imagine what life would be like without their presence. I pictured myself going about my daily routines, hanging out with friends, and finding joy in new experiences. By the time they moved, I wasn't blindsided by grief or loneliness. The loss still stung, but I had already mentally rehearsed it, and that made all the difference. Another aspect of negative visualization is recognizing that loss is a natural part of life. Everything you cherish will one day be gone, either through separation, change, or death. This isn't meant to be a morbid thought, but a liberating one. When you stop expecting permanence, you stop feeling entitled to it. And when you stop feeling entitled to something, the fear of losing it diminishes. Take relationships, for example. Most of us, when we enter a relationship, assume it will last forever. We don't plan for things to end, but the truth is, nothing is guaranteed. Rather than clinging to the false hope of permanence, the Stoic approach is to appreciate what you have while you have it, knowing that it will eventually change. This shift in perspective can be incredibly freeing. I once had a relationship where I was constantly anxious about it ending. The thought of losing that person consumed me. But when I started practicing negative visualization, I stopped obsessing over trying to control the outcome. I imagined life after the relationship, and although it was painful to consider, it reminded me to be grateful for the present moment when the relationship did eventually end. I found myself more prepared than I ever thought I would be. The true gift of negative visualization is that it strengthens your inner resilience. By repeatedly imagining worst-case scenarios, you cultivate an inner stability that life's changes cannot easily shake. You learn that no matter what happens, you will be okay, and that is the ultimate form of emotional detachment. Not from life, but from the illusion that you need things to remain the same to be happy. Rule number 4. Focus on what you can control. One of the core teachings of Stoicism, and one of the most empowering realizations you can embrace, is that there are things within your control and things outside of your control. When it comes to emotionally detaching from someone, this distinction becomes crucial. Why? Because much of the pain we feel in relationships stems from our desire to control things that we simply can't. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, repeatedly emphasizes the importance of focusing only on what is within our control: our thoughts, actions, and responses. Everything else, other people's behavior, the outcomes of situations, the passing of time, is outside our control. The more you try to control what lies beyond your influence, the more you will suffer. Emotional detachment, then, is not about coldly distancing yourself from others, but rather about letting go of your attachment to outcomes you cannot dictate. When you're deeply attached to someone, whether it's a romantic partner, friend, or family member, it's natural to want to influence how they feel about you. You want them to care for you in the same way you care for them. But the harsh truth is that you can't control their emotions. You can't make someone love you, appreciate you, or treat you the way you deserve. The only thing you can control is how you respond to their actions. Could you take a moment to reflect on a time when you tried to influence someone's feelings or behavior? Maybe you bent over backward to win someone's affection, or you exhausted Yourself trying to prove your worth to a friend who never seemed to value you truly. How did that feel? Likely, it left you feeling frustrated, anxious, and powerless because you were chasing something beyond your control. In my own experience, I was once in a relationship where I felt like I was constantly trying to keep things together. No matter how much effort I put into planning dates, sending thoughtful messages, or being emotionally available, it felt like I was always one step behind. They would pull away, and I would try harder. It was a cycle of endless anxiety, because I was trying to control how they felt about me. When I finally started embracing the Stoic principle of focusing only on what I could control, my actions and self-worth helped me let go of anxiety. I realized I couldn't make them love me more or treat me better. All I could control was my response. In that moment, I chose to detach. The relief that came from letting go of that emotional burden was immense. One of the most liberating things you can do for yourself is to embrace emotional autonomy. The idea that your happiness, peace, and emotional stability are not dependent on someone else's behavior or feelings. When you place your emotional well-being in someone else's hands, you give away your power. You become a prisoner of their actions, moods, and decisions. Imagine you're in a friendship where you constantly feel sidelined. Your friend doesn't make time for you like they used to, and you feel neglected. Naturally, this hurts, and you might find yourself ruminating on what you did wrong or why they've pulled away. But here's the key. Their behavior is outside your control. The only thing you can influence is how you choose to respond. Do you want to spend your energy chasing after someone who doesn't value you? Or focus on nurturing the relationships and activities that bring you joy and fulfillment? When you shift your attention to what you can control, you begin to reclaim your power. You no longer wait for someone else's validation or attention to feel whole. Instead, you create your emotional equilibrium, independent of external circumstances. In my own life, I've experienced friendships where I realized I was giving too much power to how others treated me. If they were distant or dismissive, I'd feel unworthy. If they were warm and attentive, I'd feel valued. It was an exhausting emotional roller coaster. However, when I began applying Stoic principles, I made a conscious decision to stop tying my self-worth to how others behaved. I started focusing on cultivating my emotional well-being, independent of their behavior. This didn't mean I cared less. It meant I stopped allowing their actions to dictate my inner peace. The ultimate goal of emotional detachment isn't indifference. It's about accepting that life is unpredictable, that people are unpredictable, and that no matter how much we wish to control everything, we can't. What we can do is accept things as they are, rather than how we want them to be. Imagine you're dealing with a breakup. You feel lost, hurt, and overwhelmed by the situation. Your mind races with questions. What if I had done something differently? Why did this happen? Can I fix this? These are natural questions, but they stem from a desire to control something that has already happened, a wish to reverse the outcome. Instead of tormenting yourself with what-ifs, the Stoic response is to accept the reality of the situation. Marcus Aurelius writes, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the obstacles we face are not hindrances. They are opportunities to grow. When you accept what's outside your control, you stop wasting energy trying to change the past or influence others and start focusing on how you can move forward. During one of the most challenging times of my life, I experienced the sudden and painful loss of a relationship I thought was solid. At first, I was consumed by the desire to understand why it happened and what I could have done differently. But gradually, I realized the only way to find peace was to accept the situation as it was, not as I wanted it to be. I couldn't change the past, and I couldn't control how the other person felt. What I could control was how I reacted to that loss. Instead of clinging to what was gone, I embraced the present reality and found strength in acceptance. Rule number 5. Reflect on the bigger picture. When you're deeply entangled in the emotions of a relationship or a difficult situation, it's easy to lose perspective. Stoic philosophy, primarily through the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, encourages us to step back and consider the broader perspective. Aurelius often emphasized that our troubles, fears, and desires are merely fleeting moments in the vastness of time. By adopting this broader perspective, emotional detachment becomes easier to achieve. Ask yourself important questions like, will this pain matter in 5 years? Or, does this person truly define my entire existence? Shifting your focus from immediate emotional turmoil to a higher level of reflection helps you realize that much of your distress is tied to temporary circumstances. Stoicism reminds us that no single person or event should have such a profound impact on our emotional well-being. When you're overly attached to someone, it's easy to make them the center of your universe. Your happiness and self-worth can become entwined with their presence or absence in your life. But stepping back and seeing the bigger picture reminds you that life is ever-changing and that relationships, however intense, are just one part of your journey. You are a complete individual with your path and experiences. In the heat of a breakup or emotional conflict, it can be challenging to grasp this perspective, but reflecting on the broader scope of your life helps you realize that you've survived emotional storms before. Life moved on, and so did you. Think back to past relationships or moments when you thought your world was falling apart. Those wounds healed, and you became stronger and wiser. This is the natural rhythm of life. In my own experience, I once went through a painful breakup that felt like the end of my world. For weeks, I fixated on the past, feeling as if the future had lost its brightness. But with time, I allowed myself to reflect on the bigger picture and realized that this person, while important, was not the defining moment of my life. They were part of my journey, but not the entirety of my story. By zooming out, I saw the relationship as just one chapter in a much larger narrative, and I began to detach emotionally. The Stoics, particularly Marcus Aurelius, emphasize the impermanence of all things, relationships, emotions, and situations. Everything in life is transient, and what truly matters is how we respond to these inevitable changes. By reflecting on the bigger picture, you cultivate a sense of inner peace, knowing that life will continue to flow regardless of your temporary attachments. This broader perspective allows you to detach emotionally, not because you stop caring, but because you understand that clinging too tightly to fleeting things only leads to unnecessary suffering. Emotional detachment is not about apathy. It's about understanding that life is much larger than any single person, relationship, or moment of pain. By seeing your life as a vast interconnected web of experiences, you free yourself from the tunnel vision that emotional attachment can create. Ultimately, emotional detachment is not about shutting down your emotions or closing yourself off from the world. It's about building resilience and gaining control over how you respond to life's inevitable changes. The Stoic path offers not a quick fix, but a way to inner peace. By embracing impermanence, mastering your emotions through rational thought, and reflecting on the broader picture, you will discover that emotional detachment is an act of self-liberation. So the next time you feel yourself gripping too tightly to someone or something, ask yourself, do I control my emotions, or do they control me? Emotional freedom awaits those who dare to let go. Conclusion. Freedom begins with detachment. Emotional detachment is not about shutting yourself off from love or life. It's about reclaiming your peace, your strength, and your ability to think clearly in the face of heartache. Through the wisdom of Stoicism, you learn to feel deeply without being ruled by your feelings. You begin to understand that no person, no situation, and no heartbreak has the right to define your worth. Let go, not because you don't care, but because you care enough about yourself to stop suffering. Use the 5 Stoic rules not as a wall, but as a bridge to peace, resilience, and a version of yourself that is whole, grounded, and free. Detachment is not the end of love. It's the beginning of self-respect. From that place, everything changes.